Hello and welcome to a brand new edition of WION Sports Extra. I am Nikhil Mathur. I am joined by my sports editor Digvay Singh Deo and by my colleague Vidur Kasuria. The International Olympic Committee has issued recommendations to the sports federations across the world suggesting that they should allow the return of Russian and Belarusian athletes to return. This moves, they did not refer to the 2024 Paris Olympics, but with this move, has the IOC cleared a pathway for the Russian and Belarusian athletes to compete at the upcoming Olympics in 2024? That's what we're going to discuss in this live. Our poll is also underway on WION Sports Twitter handle. You know, the war is still underway, Russia is still invading Ukraine, but the IOC has somewhat made up its mind. They want Russian and Belarusian athletes to be there at the Olympics in 2024, a bit as neutral.
I think the decks have been cleared. I think the way I look at this statement which came out and Thomas Bach's comments ahead of that executive board meeting, I think that the decks are now cleared, that come what may, whatever be the pressures, okay, they've obviously backed off and said that we were not taking a decision right now on the Olympic Games or the 2026 Winter Olympics. But as things stand, the way I look at it, I think the IOC has cleared the decks for Russian and Belarusian athletes to compete at the Olympics. They've obviously sugar-coated it by saying that, you know, we've looked at other sports which have Russian participation. They've mentioned tennis there.
Tennis, yeah.
And they've also crucially said that we've looked at 70 conflicts going on in the world. They're quoting a lot of data. And they're saying in those 70 conflicts, the national Olympic committees of those countries are not saying ban the other one. That's why I think it's a very strong statement. I think that they made up their mind. And their pushback also seems to be that if the Olympic Games today, the IOC does not take a stand, and if it allows political interference to happen, then going forward, that's setting a precedent. I don't think, you know, what happened in 80 or 84 is something the Olympic movement can sort of afford. But they've gone out and said the kind of pressure being put on them by the Baltic states, by England, by Poland, by Ukraine, they're saying we don't want political interference, and an athlete's passport cannot decide if he or she is going to compete at the Olympic Games.
I think the IOC's stance has been pretty clear for the last, say, 2 months. But yesterday the thing was, it was a very strong statement, as you said. Thomas Bach said that their participation works. That's a very strong statement. It clearly indicates that the IOC now going forward are not going to budge. They want Russian and Belarusian athletes at the Olympics. Obviously, they're seeing that the pathway isn't clear, that this is just for other international competitions. But they're just, buying themselves time in a way to make that statement, which is going to happen sooner or later.
I don't think it's going to happen till January, February next year.
Yeah.
And it's just, I think they're hoping that by the time sort of the Russian troops pull out or whatever. And look at it from their perspective. This is their flagship event. The Olympics are the biggest sort of unifier in this world. Why will they declare it now?
Yeah.
The pathway for Russian athletes is through the Asian Games, which is anyway in September, October, in China. That's the only way they're going to come. But also crucially, don't you think so, Vidut, that what they've done now is, last year they said full blanket ban on all Russian athletes, right?
Yeah.
Some sports allowed. It was obviously whatever sports wanted to do. But a lot of sports also need athletes from those countries. Now we have to look closely as to what the IOC said. There are larger ramifications, but those ramifications will be understood by only those who follow Russian sport closely. What do you think? Nikhil?
Probably there are some athletes that, you know, there are some sports where Russians dominate, and if they are not there, like in Olympics, if they are not there in those events, definitely the standard of that event will not be what is usually.
For example, tennis.
Yeah.
Tennis, in fact, Russian and Belarusian athletes.
Hey, look at who we're talking about.
Yes.
Sabalenka, Medvedev, Vika Azarenka, Rublev, Kachanov.
Absolutely. So Kachanov is Olympic silver medalist.
Yes.
Daniel Medvedev is...
Rublev won the gold with Potapova
yes.
in the doubles.
Absolutely.
It was an all-Russian final.
Exactly. And their doubles team, Russian doubles team won the gold medal.
Gold and silver.
Yeah.
I think it was a mixed.
Exactly.
Mixed doubles.
That's right.
Yeah.
Former world #1 US Open champion Daniel Medvedev. Sabalenka, reigning Australian Open champion.
And the most informed player at the moment.
Yeah, he could be world number one in a couple of months.
Yeah.
So the field, especially in tennis, which is obviously one of the major sports at an Olympic event, it will get significantly weakened. And obviously, ultimately, what is the Olympics? It is the showpiece for sport. It is sport at its best. So you're significantly weakening the field for a sport like tennis when you don't have Russian and Belarusian athletes.
But I think the point that the Ukrainian side is making is that, the war is still on, people are still dying, Russia has no plans of backing out. So what has changed? Basically, they're questioning the IOC that you had a blanket ban. Nothing has changed after that. The war is still on, people are dying. So that's what they're taking on IOC. And they're also questioning what is this neutral state. There's 40 countries that signed up that they threatened to boycott it. They think, what is
But last Olympics, let's face it, Russia competed as neutrals because of the WADA ban.
Yeah.
So, the Russian national anthem didn't play. That's still there, by the way. If you read the IOC statement carefully, the Russian national anthem, the Russian flags are still not allowed. You still compete as neutrals, and this is where I think the IOCs try to play safe. And this is the fine print. If you're a member of the Russian military, then you can't compete.
Yeah.
Okay? A lot of athletes in Russia, like in India, you have the public, what are they called? Public undertakings, the PSUs. In Russia, a lot of these athletes are employed by the military. One of the most famous Russian military sort of officers was Yelena Isinbaeva. Okay? So they're saying if you're a member of the Russian military or any way contracted to the Russian military, you can't compete. That is going to be a huge blow. They also said that while athletes can compete, you cannot compete as a team.
Yeah.
Now, we spoke about tennis. That means a Russian doubles team cannot participate.
Yeah.
So that means at the last Olympics in Tokyo, 7 Russian teams won gold medals.
Yeah.
Artistic swimming, all-round gymnastics, the doubles. I think there was fencing as well. These are just gold. If you look at it, there are obviously other sports as well in terms of the medal tally. So the IOC is sort of, I think, playing it very safe. Yeah. They're sort of sticking to that stand that we're going to be neutral and that we stay away out of this conflict and whatever we'll support Ukraine and whatever Russian. So Putin is banned from the Olympics. All of that is there. But they're also sort of saying that come play sport as a neutral, as an individual, not as a member of a team. Yeah. That's significant.
Also, it's written, if you support the war, then you can't compete.
Yeah. So it takes me back to that doping story, where if you had any links to that doping lab, you were not allowed to compete. They're saying what they did last time. They said, go show us that you've never had a history of doping. We'll allow you to compete as a neutral. So those stringent sort of rules are in place. And I think that's going to be the game changer. And I think that's where now, earlier the Russians kept saying that, sport should not, there should be no politics in sport. Now the Russian Olympic Committee statement saying this is a farce.
Yeah.
They've realized that, okay, we will be allowed probably to compete. And it's a big if, but I think it's happening. But those conditions of entry now are so strict. I mean, no Russian team, that's significantly going to affect their medal haul.
I think I want to ask you this question, Vijay. Now, how do other countries who have been calling for a complete ban on Belarus and Russia, what do they do now? How will they react going forward in the next few months?
See, I think if the war continues, and as of now, there is no sign of a thaw. But we are still, 480, 90 days away from the Olympics. It's a long way off. So we are speculating. But as things stand, if there are going to be Russian athletes and Belarusian athletes in any form, be it a neutral or whatever, I don't see the Ukrainians competing. Then, what about the other team? A lot of countries are coming out and saying that, while we are with the Ukrainian cause, nobody wants to not send a team to the Olympics.
Yeah.
Listen, the Olympics is war minus the shooting. You are a superpower, the Americans are superpowers, the Chinese want to be superpowers. You can't have a war, so the battle is played out in the Olympic field. Exactly. A country like India, with all our population, we have just won 2 Olympic gold medals. But I remember the euphoria when Bindra won the first gold. I was there in Beijing. I didn't travel to Tokyo last time. But the entire country got swept away in that euphoria of Neeraj Chopra winning the gold medal. So you cannot discount what an Olympic medals means to a country. Especially, say, the developed nations, forget them. I remember Sri Lanka. Pakistan used to win the hockey gold medal. That was massive for them. That was it. One gold or one medal for them is equal to 100 by any other country. Sri Lanka, Susantika Jayasinghe, who had won this, right? And going back to Jamaica before the time of Usain Bolt, Murli Naughty. This matters a lot for these small nations. So while it's very easy right now to say, oh, we'll boycott this and that, when it comes to it, why in 1980, when the Western boycott of the Moscow Olympics happened, the British Olympic Committee refused to toe the government's line. It sent a neutral team under the Olympic flag, which included the likes of Sepko, Daley Thompson. They competed as neutrals under the Olympic flag.
So it's like, it's a global platform. It's a global sporting platform. And of course, it's a sporting platform, but as Digvijay rightly said, every country wants some representation at an event like the Olympic Games.
They're too big. I think push comes to shove, you'll have Poland withdrawing, but that's a country situation. What would Iga Swiatek want to say on that? As things stand, I'll just give you a context from Indian sport. You know, before the London Olympics, there was this huge hue and cry about Dow being an Olympic sponsor. Obviously, the Dow took over Union Carbide, which was responsible for the Bhopal gas tragedy. There was a huge tamasha which happened, and there were calls to boycott, but athletes didn't get into it. Obviously, Dow backed down. It didn't put that poster all over the Olympic stadium, but at no point did the Indian athletes say, we'll boycott. A boycott is a huge thing. Governments don't compete at the Olympics. Let me reiterate this. Governments do not compete at the Olympic Games. Athletes do. For someone like a Usain Bolt, someone like a Noah Lyles, their Olympic journey, all those 4 years comes down to 10 seconds. 10 seconds in the first round, 10 seconds in the semis, 10 seconds in the final. If you're 200 meters, it's 20 seconds, right? The shortest events. Are you telling me that those athletes are going to willingly sit back and tell them, oh, all due respect, we are going to back our country's call to boycott? No, I don't think the Americans are boycotting this. They've said it very clearly that while they're against what's going on in the war, they are not going to allow a boycott to happen because they're hosting an Olympics as well. A majority of Olympic funding comes from the US in terms of the broadcast deal, the NBC deal, which is massive, billions of dollars. When you don't have those country sponsors start pulling the money out, that money sort of trickles down to various countries and their programs. Just talking about the FIFA increasing that figure, 355 million to the clubs, right? Where's the money coming from? It's coming from the increase to 48 teams. FIFA's revenue is going from 7.5 to 11 billion, obviously the trickle-down effect. It all boils down, it comes back to those countries. The European UEFA countries don't need the money, right? But look at the amount of money an India Football Federation will make, or a Sierra Leone will make, or say even Curacao, who got thrashed today by Argentina. It's a trickle-down effect. It's all about money in the end.
No, and all of these countries, like politically speaking, they supported Ukraine, but no one directly participated in the war. They had their own stand. They said we will back you, but no country provided arms and ammunition to Ukraine when they were asking. So it's pretty clear they want to support Ukraine, but if they don't want to participate in it.
I don't want to get into the politics of the war, but the fact is, if, as you're saying, right, you want put boots on the ground. What happened in Iran or in Afghanistan at that point of time, a coalition was built. So, okay, we've got something. Sanjeev Sinha says, Russian gas is okay, but spokesperson's not. Important point. It just exposes the sort of duplicity, the double standards in the world at the moment. All this talk, and you talk about, you said these athletes not coming there, but the entire Europe went through a winter because of Russian gas. Ibrahim Said says, Russia should be there to participate. This is sports, not politics.
Exactly. Sports and politics, let's keep them.
Yeah, there will be politics.
Well, there will always be.
There will always be, but
The reason why we're having this conversation is because politics is involved in sport. But there has to be some line between just full-fledged sporting competition and the political side of it.
Okay. Poll. Has the IOC cleared the way for Russian and Belarusian athletes to compete at the Paris Olympics? 68% of you say yes. So clearly, it's 2/3. Public opinion has shifted. I think everyone understands the politics. India, Pakistan don't play together in a bilateral series. but they still play at a World Cup.
Of course.
So I think that's where we're heading. I think the IOC is sort of, as I said at the beginning, they've sort of cleared the pathway. Now, they can't go back on this now. Yeah.
They've obviously taken a concrete decision.
Yeah.
And they're saying it's sport, ultimately. Why should the British government decide who competes in sport or not?
Exactly.
I mean, suppose something happens in India, what is Neeraj Chopra's fault? Neeraj Chopra technically is a member of the Indian military.
Yeah.
He's a military soldier. Rajarif. So there's a moral argument to it, but the Olympics is, I think it's beyond a moral argument. The Olympics is sport. Let's leave sport as it is.
So I think we have covered all the points.
Yeah.
And thanks for your comments. So what are we having at Astro at 6:30 p.m. IST?
You should tell us. You're the one who's in the morning and who wakes the rundown.
And Vidur is also there in the morning for a few days now. Yes. So another day, another record for Lionel Messi. He has scored 102 goals in international football and he's third on the list behind Cristiano Ronaldo and Ali Dai. So that story we have. And a big upset, of course.
How big is it? I think that's the conversation we need to have. Is it Spain losing to Scotland at Hampden Park? I have a lot of Scottish friends who've gone wild. The party hangover is clearly, they haven't responded, they're still partying.
First win since 1984.
Yeah, and one of the biggest results in recent memory, Scotland. I don't remember them having such a big result a long time. I remember they beat France 10, 15 years back. That was a big result for them. But yeah, huge result for Scotland.
No, and a deserving win. It's not a smash and grab somewhere. It's a deserving
Also,
win.
question
But hang on.
Spain.
Yes, but where do you rank this in upsets in the last 6 months? Bigger than Argentina, Saudi Arabia?
No. At the world stage.
World Cup,
World Cup. That was one of the biggest shocks in the history of football, if not sport. That was a huge shock. And after what happened, after what Argentina did, it in fact makes it an even bigger shock.
Yeah.
Oh, we're going to reference that as well because the coach of the Saudi team that day, in that afternoon, Renard, he's resigned and he is going to France.
Yes, to take over the women's national team, who are obviously undergoing a huge crisis because their former coach,
Corinne Diacre.
Yes.
There's a mutiny against her.
Player mutiny against her, and she has obviously been sacked. And not long to go for the Women's World Cup. It's in July. So he's
Australia, New Zealand.
Yes. So not long to go for that, which obviously we'll be covering.
And also,
Sunshine double.
Carlos Alcaraz and Elena Rybakina on course for a rare sunshine double.
I'm actually wondering, while we had Swiatek winning it last year and then Federer won it some time back, I don't think the sunshine double, both men's and women's, same time happening.
Yeah.
Perhaps Federer, Serena, I have to look that up. Yeah.
We'll have to check that. Yeah.
Done? Yeah. Okay, so on that note, thank you for joining us and WION Sports, 6:30 p.m. IST. See you there.